From vaccines for teachers in South Carolina to the latest on beach parking on the Isle of Palms, I speak exclusively with State Representative Joe Bustos, who represents Mount Pleasant, the Isle of Palms, and Sullivan's Island for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. State Representative Joe Bustos, welcome back to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. How have you been?
Oh, I'm doing great. A lot of running, a lot of interviews, a lot of work, and a lot of walking around, Mount Pleasant and Sullivan's Island and downtown Charleston. But life is good.
Well, that's good that you can do that.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And bumping into some unknown locations in Mount Pleasant, so I'm learning a lot.
Well, that's good. At least it sounds like the rain's been giving you a little bit of a break, although we've had a lot.
Yeah. I got soaked, like I was telling you yesterday about my run. So I decided to go running at the last minute when I wanted to go for a run. I sat for an hour in the house and it didn't rain. And then once I got out and run, it started raining on me. And I'm like, ah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. Well, I know that obviously you've been a state representative since November. Who is Joe Bustos right now as state representative?
Who am I? Well,
yes, sir.
I'm still the same guy, out there trying to work for the people and represent the district, bring information back to the district, answer questions, doing all those things that I think I should. And there have been plenty of questions, and I
heard
people are letting me know their desires on a number of different issues, and trying to represent that and study the bills as they come in.
What are those bills?
There are a lot of bills.
And which particular bill represents your district the most?
Well, I think, they all represent the state pretty much across the board. We don't have anything that is specific to District 112, but there are a lot of bills that influence District 112. For instance, we voted to give the teachers their step increases that were held as of last March. So we got that done. I've spent $200 million for COVID to give the medical university money to hire retired nurses and doctors and other practitioners so they can give shots, and then also to give the DHEC the ability to put distribution sites in drugstores, grocery stores, and different locations, so that if we increase the number of locations where shots can be given, and we increase the number of people who can give those shots, we're hoping we're going to get everyone vaccinated faster than doing it in eaches.
Speaking of which, let me talk to you about teachers and vaccines. The governor master said last Thursday that, quote, schools can safely reopen now without making our seniors compete with younger, less vulnerable South Carolinians for vaccine. He says he's called on the General Assembly to send him a bill requiring every district to provide parents and students with an option for a 5-day in-person instruction. He says he's still waiting. Let me ask you this. How will the General Assembly put before Governor McMaster a bill that authorized DHEC to vaccinate all teachers, staff, and school personnel immediately?
Well, and that is coming to us. I know in the Senate, it passed to vaccinate teachers, put teachers in Category 1A, along with now 65-year-olds and above. But there have been so many different groups and different people who have managed to get themselves designated 1A. We're having a hard time getting through 1A before we can get to 1B and C and all those. So everyone seemingly in a lower category is rushing to get to the top, and that just makes it prolongs the ability of the healthcare providers to get shots across the board. I've heard that some caregivers who work 1 day a week for elderly people in home have been, characterized as frontline workers, and they went to the top of the list. Governor McMaster's idea was not to immunize teachers because schools, the CDC says schools are safe because younger children don't get and pass COVID as readily as older people. So it'd be better to vaccinate the older and most vulnerable before the teachers. Of course, that bill has not gotten to the House yet, and I'm sure there is some information that will come with that bill that we don't know yet. Some facts and figures and studies that'll be done. So we have to wait till we get that and actually have it in the House before we can vote on it.
And what would be that ideal bill that you would actually send to the governor?
Well, the bill that is being sent to the governor right now, the one we're going to have to work on, which came from the Senate, is to give all the teachers, move teachers up in the priority list to have them get their shots in that first category, along with the first category now has 65-year-olds. It was at 70, but 65-year-olds and above would get that shot. Unfortunately, that's the priorities being moved around. I know my mother, who is 97, has not been able to get a COVID shot because when she gets ready to go to the medical university, they say we're out of vaccine again. So we have not worked all the way through those, and I'd say, like I said, she's 97, and knock on wood, she's still doing very well, but moving all these different groups up into the highest priority, of course, somebody has to get bumped out. And that's the problem. So we're going to have to deal with that and try to determine which is the better way to do it.
Should a vaccine program proceed to completion and COVID-19 needs to show an appreciable decrease in incidence before discussion of school openings can actually be even considered?
Well, no, because schools are open. Charleston County School District is open. Our grandson is going to school 5 days a week, and everything's been working fine. The teacher's been doing a great job. It's face-to-face type teaching, and they're taking, the school district seems to be taking every precaution. And I have not heard of a lot of children getting sick. So Charleston School District's doing a good job.
Now, how will the state make sure all the schools and communities also meet the requirements of the CDC necessary for schools to open without vaccinating teachers?
Well, here again, we haven't addressed the teachers being vaccinated. So, it may be that they will be vaccinated before, some schools start. I think it's up to the school districts as to whether or not they want to start. But I haven't heard any hue and cry that, the teachers are getting sick, but there's always that possibility.
Now, I know that the state has roughly 48,000 teachers in the state of South Carolina. How will the vaccine supply be replenished in less than 5 days, hypothetically?
Well, the governor has gone to Washington and asked for increases of vaccine, and we've been, as soon as we get it, the governor's given an order, don't hold any. If you have people that are there to get shots and you have vaccine, you give the shots, and trying to push it out into the communities. He's just going to have to stay, the DHEC and the governor and everyone is going to have to stay in touch with Washington and tell them we need more vaccines. And I know that last week, just about the entire House signed on to a letter requesting our delegation in Washington to push to get more vaccines. And since I've been on the House or in the House, that has been a priority. Practically every week I've been up there trying to find ways to push to get more vaccine, to find ways to get the vaccine out into the communities and have people available to give those vaccinations to the population of the state.
You talk about the population of the state. Let me ask you, how many doses of vaccine is the state currently sitting on?
I don't know. That changes. Obviously, on a daily basis, it changes. And last week, I know in Charleston County, in my district, they had to cancel a couple of events to give those shots, but they have them this week. So this, and as I understand it, this bad weather, this cold cold weather storms and all that,
right,
delayed the shipment of the vaccines. So I'm going to say this week, when this storm works through, we should be getting plenty.
And you talked earlier about obviously the 65 in plus group, and I let me ask you this: can the state then get teachers and staff vaccinated in 2 weeks and then move to the 65 plus group?
Well, yeah, I mean, anything's possible, but we've all discussed, and it's been recognized that and initially it was 70 and above, were the most vulnerable because of their age, and many have underlying conditions. And I know when I first took office, people, when it was at 70 and above, people who were 68, 69 were sending me notices saying, can I get a shot? Can I get a shot? And then it was February the 8th when the governor moved the age down to 65. And of course, his position is if we move the teachers up, it's going to displace some of the 65-year-olds and above. And as I was telling you,
right,
my mother, who is 96, has not been, or 97, has not been able to get a shot. And I would say she's probably one of the more vulnerable people, but, the medical university cannot get her a shot. So, we're still working on that group 1A, but I don't know, and if we can't get a 97-year-old vaccinated, and we're vaccinating 65 and above, and then we push teachers into that, there may be some problems. But that bill has yet to work its way through the legislature.
Let me ask you this, Joe. Why aren't disabled adults, who are under 65 eligible for the vaccine yet?
And we're using as I understand it, DHEC is using the CDC guidance to try to vaccinate people. And there are some people who are vulnerable because of immunodeficiencies and things like that. And they have been, the VA had some vaccine, and they were giving veteran shots in the VA. But I think that was just a small part of it. But as they could get vaccine, they were. And there have been stories that, the families of hospital workers have been able to get the vaccine ahead of other people when there was nothing wrong with them. And that shouldn't be happening, but, it does.
Well, let me turn over to something that is very, very controversial, and unfortunately, I know that you are in the middle of it. Let me talk to you bluntly about it. Beach access and parking. I know that you
Right.
have said nobody has denied, obviously, the residents or even visitors access to the beach. How long were roadblocks up until Charleston County stepped into the situation and then eventually DOT?
And what's your question?
Yeah, I know that you have said that nobody has denied anybody access to the beaches. And I'm wondering, when you look back to what happened last summer, last year when it all began to right now, how long were the roadblocks up until Charleston County and eventually DOT stepped in?
Well, the roadblocks weren't up that long. And Secretary Christy Hall of the Department of Transportation said she saw it, but she didn't do anything about it. As soon as state roads were blocked, she could have stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. But she didn't do it. And so they stayed up. And I've talked to the mayors about that, and they thought they were doing what the governor wanted them to do. And on that particular issue, I know it's being taken up. There's a proposed bill in the House to define what particular disasters can be the governor, where the governor has the authority to declare a state of emergency, say like a bad hurricane, a bad earthquake, something like that. And does a pandemic like this really constitute something where a state of emergency really exists? And that's where there was confusion. Is this the same as a hurricane that comes through and tens of thousands of people's homes are destroyed or damaged, and you need to find a place for them to live? Is that the same as an illness like this, where people just stay home and can wear a mask and social distance? So, there are just different degrees of this thing. And the State House, the House is going to take up that issue. And then to carry it on a little bit further, there was a state of emergency was declared, but then it ran out, so another one was declared. And it's going to be defined how long even the governor has when declaring a state of emergency. Can he do it for 2 weeks, a month? Can he do it multiple times, for the same disaster? At some point, the desire is for the governor to come back, if he has to do multiple states of emergency, to come back to the legislature and say, this is what we have, and this is what we need to do to protect the citizens of the state, and not have multiple declarations of emergency giving governments, local governments, state government power to do things. I think the mayors were doing the best they could, but they didn't have exactly a lot of guidance on how long they could do it and what the depth of their authority was. So there were times there when it was just confusing. And I think we're going to look to define that.
Now, you said that obviously most of the mayors are basically listening to what the governors are saying. Well, who should they have been listening to, the governor or the Department of Transportation?
Oh, well, the governor outranks the Secretary of Transportation.
Right.
She should have come in with a recommendation.
Okay.
She could have said this during this state of emergency. We can't have this type. We advised them to try to keep crowds down and social distance and all these things. Stores were closed, restaurants were closed, as you know. And, on one hand, people needed to have some place where they could go outside and social distance. But even in Mount Pleasant, parks were closed. People were just doing the best they could, but they didn't know everything they could do. And I feel there was a lack of guidance. The governor was doing the best he could. Even on the national scene, Dr. Fauci and the CDC and everyone, and guidance was changing almost on a daily basis. Wear a mask. You don't have to wear a mask. Everybody should wear 2 masks. Stay inside. Restaurants are closed. There was so much conflicting guidance that, even the state and national levels, everything you heard from them and every time you heard, it was different. And how they could interpret that, I think, was just very difficult.
Now, I also know that you have plans to work with the mayors to see if there's if a compromise which is suitable for the residents, non-residents, and obviously for the South Carolina Department of Transportation to be able to reach it. Why should why should they even think about compromise on parking areas that are already owned by taxpayers?
Well, here again, the taxpayers own that, and the island folks pay taxes just like everyone for the rights of way, but then the taxpayers on the islands pay additionally in their local taxes to keep it clean. The problem is, in my mind, if we need to get all these Facebook groups settled down and work together to find out what the solution is. The one thing that we do know, and I feel that's very true, is if the State Department of Transportation wants to take those rights of way away from the town for parking and mandate that there's nothing but free parking, the State Department of Transportation can't even repair the roads it has. So how's it going to care for, clean, maintain additional rights of way in high traffic areas like Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island? You have to have the cities participating in that. So, you have to work with them to help come up with something that works for both parties. Now, the State Department of Transportation approved the Isle of Palms parking plan in 2015. And I don't want to go too much further than that, because right now we have been working with the mayors and the directors of the Beach Access Foundation. And, my hope is that we're going to have resolution soon. And they're, the attorneys at this point, I think, are talking. So I feel that we're getting to a point where we have resolution. The islands are going to have to give a little bit, and the foundation's probably going to have to give a little bit. The Secretary of Transportation is going to have to give a little bit, and no one can shove all this down the other one's throat, because, like I say, the money isn't there for the Department of Transportation, who can barely take care of the roads we have now, to start going out and saying they're going to, in my mind, they would have to maintain those rights of way to a high level. Because the one thing I do know is those beaches are the attraction and for tourism, and tourism is what keeps this area going strong. If we didn't have tourism, we'd have a big problem. So everybody needs to back off a little bit, and remember, tourists aren't going to come to beaches that aren't maintained. that aren't safe. So there's going to have to be a number of police there. They're going to have to know that when they go out into the surf and they get in trouble, that there's going to be a group of emergency responders that will rush out into the water to try to save them with ski-doos, boats, whatever equipment they have. And if there's not enough money to provide that, the tourists won't come. And if the tourists won't come, everyone loses.
I'll ask you about that money in a minute, but let me ask you this. Will the compromise include land to be taken by eminent domain by the state?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I have not heard that's planned. So I have,
Okay. Would more of the local streets be used for parking like they were in the past?
The 2015 plan would define where the parking would go.
And let me ask you this. In return, should residents support continued funding for necessary beach replenishment?
Well, the local residents want the beach, their local communities, their neighborhoods to be maintained. They want to keep them clean. And like anything, for years, we've heard in the forest for all the visitors that come, Smokey the Bear's out there saying, only you can prevent a forest fire. And, where people go, they bring litter. They have to have a bathroom to use. If they don't have, and on the beach, they go out in the water. Unfortunately, it's been documented that some of our tourists go underneath people's houses to use the bathroom. So, throw diapers and dirty diapers in people's yards. So that's a burden that's a burden that residents accept because they live on the beach, but it shouldn't be abusive. They have a right to complain when people are throwing dirty diapers underneath their house and driving over their flowers and doing different things like that. But people understand that that's part and parcel of living on the beaches. And I think they, perhaps grudgingly, but I think our beach residents have tried to keep their neighborhoods in great shape so that the tourists who come to the beach don't feel put off because it's littered and unkempt and dirty.
Now, what is your upcoming schedule and itinerary for meeting with obviously Jimmy Carroll and obviously Pat O'Neill?
Well, like I said, we're speaking and communicating almost on a daily basis.
Okay. Now, how many number of parking places may have to be adjusted on both islands?
Well, if we go back to the 2015 plan, there are no adjustments. It would be by the 2015 plan.
Now, doesn't all neighborhoods have easements?
State easements?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay.
Some, even Mount Pleasant, have town rights of way and state rights of way.
Right.
In the older part of Mount Pleasant, we have where the highway department built those streets and owned the easements. But in the case of Mount Pleasant, we have many drainage problems, and most of those drainage problems stem from where the state never put in storm drains and won't now. When they're asked to put in, when the state highway department is asked to put in storm drains on their state right of way on state built streets, they say no, and they'll say again, we don't have the money.
Where is the money?
Well, and that's a moving target that has been debated a lot. Gas taxes have been raised. Gas, I think the amount of money is, I think it's around 17 or 18 cents per gallon now, and it's supposed to go up 2 cents a year until it gets to like 20, 26 cents, something like that per gallon. And that should be sufficient money to fix some of these things. And that's why I say I don't believe the State Department of Transportation can take on more things to do if they're saying they can't even do their basic function of repairing roads.
Now, speaking of which, where on Palm Boulevard can there be any widening?
I don't know if there can be.
Okay.
It's a two-lane street.
Right.
It's a two-lane street. You know, with the right of way. You know, you can only put 5 gallons in a 5-gallon bucket. Let me say this.
Yes, sir.
I grew up in Mount Pleasant.
Right.
You know, in the 50s, 60s, went in the Army, retired, came back. And at that point, there were about, when I was growing up and in high school, there were probably, between the islands of Mount Pleasant, there were maybe 10,000 people. We had Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, and Folly Beach. But I'm only going to talk about east of the Cooper. Now, we have about 7,000 or 8,000 people on the islands, but Mount Pleasant has grown from 2,500 people to 95,000. And when you've gone to almost 100,000 people in the local area, but you haven't increased the size of the beach, you know, you have to wonder, can everyone go to the beach?
That brings me to my next question. Is overpopulation really the problem here and not beach access?
And I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
As you remember, when I was on council dating back to 2000,
Right.
one of the issues I always worked on was growth. And even with permit allocation,
right,
holding the growth to 2.5% per year, from 2000 to now, we've grown from 40,000 to nearly 95,000 people. You know, it's traffic. It's people wanting to go to the beach, and we literally have more people who want to go to the beach than we have beach because of that growth. There has not been more beach created. Well, I take that back. There's been some renourishment to replace what was lost, but we just, you know, we're full. The beach is full. I know there are times I want to go to the beach. My wife and I want to go to the beach. And we look at the traffic backed up all the way from Sullivan's Island to Moultrie Middle School. And we say, well, we're not doing that today because you just can't get there. You know, there are times, Rifle Range Road, the traffic is so backed up on the Isle of Palms connector that you can't turn from Rifle Range Road or Highway 17 onto the connector.
Right.
It's full. And I know that there are people come from North Charleston, Berkeley County, and a number of other places who get up in the morning, want to go to the beach, and they just, by the time it takes them forever to get there because the traffic's backed up, because so many people want to go to the beach, and we have 100,000 people now, and it, you know, you can't. You could probably bulldoze all of Isle of Palms, and you couldn't park all the cars of people who want to go to the beach.
How many streets are there on the Isle of Palms that actually have public parking?
Well, like I said, the biggest ones are Palm Boulevard and down into some residential streets. Carolina has some.
Right.
The city has a parking lot. You know, the county has a parking lot with their park.
Right.
It's a pay parking lot, as those are. There's pay parking on right there on Front Beach.
Sure.
Like I say, some on Carolina. You see people parked in the streets. And then on the side streets, I don't know all the,
Right.
all the different numbered streets, but those. And then there's some down by Breach Inlet.
Right.
Some places to park. So.
Yeah. And let me ask you this too. What exactly is the big concern that limiting parking will actually resolve?
Well, what will it resolve? Limiting parking?
Yes, sir.
Well, limiting parking is, you can't have like I said, you can't bulldoze the island and make the whole thing a parking lot. Well, I guess you could if you had enough money to buy the island, but, everybody should get a fair shot at getting a parking place. But I think it's pretty clear that every person who wants to go to the beach from 100,000+ people on the weekends in the summer, I don't think the islands can accommodate that. I just don't think there are enough places.
Now,
And that's due to growth.
yes, sir. And to clear up the main rules, can they make them no parking with some handicap spots?
They haven't been.
Okay.
The notion of reserving some for handicap, and putting those, and I think the state should do this, is putting, they have beach wheelchairs. And I know I saw in Virginia there were several handicap parking places, and for people who had these beach wheelchairs to go through the deep sand, they had almost like plastic tubes that were laid on top of the sand that people could walk with the wheelchairs with wider tires, and that you could get someone with a wheelchair down to the beach. I've never seen that here, but that would be a reasonable accommodation that the state perhaps should look at.
Now, can they also open up all sides and back streets for free parking?
As I said, some of the residential streets, those folks, I think, have a right to have a neighborhood that can be maintained. Some of those streets belong to the town, and that falls to the town.
Okay.
Some of the ones with state right of way, I think they have, according to the beach plan that DOT approved.
Is there any way to get more of the parking back that has already been taken away?
Well, again, I don't want to get too far into that because that falls into the attorneys.
Sure.
But if they go back to, for instance, if they were to go back to the 2015 plan, it would, I think it would be fine. But the other part is, and this involves the police, some of the parking, when it was according to that plan, and they had some areas with parallel parking, people would double park and triple park by the parallel parking, and then the police would have to come and try to referee people trying to get out who were on the inside, and that resulted in visitors driving across people's yards to get back out on the street, and that's not right. the residents there have to be, and I think for the most part they are happy if the plan is followed. But when they start abusing people's yards and different things by driving over, throwing out litter, stuff like that, there has to be a point in time where that has to be policed. And again, the Isle of Palms has a small police department, and they do hire from different departments to work extra duty during the summer to help, like county sheriff's deputies, but again, the burden of the expense of those deputies falls to the town. Now, perhaps if the state's plan is causing crowding, the state needs to provide police officers to help during those rush periods.
Now, what part of the 2015 parking plan for Isle of Palms do you actually favor?
What part of it do I favor?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think I favor the idea that they ask the town or the city of the Isle of Palms to put together a plan. They went out and hired, I think it was Stantec, to study the streets and to put together a parking plan. Their council approved living by that plan. They sent that plan to the State Department of Transportation and said, look this over and approve it or disapprove it, and we'll keep working on it. Well, they approved it and said that it looked great and that it would serve the Isle of Palms well into the future. And now, 5-6 years later, they're saying, well, it's not working. Well, then, okay, what's not working? And if in my opinion, if the State Department of Transportation's solution is we'll take over and manage the state rights of way and parking, then they have to pay for it. They have to pay for the upkeep of the rights of way. They have to pay for the policing. They have to help move the traffic. They just can't say, do this and you pay for it. Because, we do have home rule in this state.
Right.
And if they do that, are they going to do it to the city of Charleston? It would strike me as a matter of fairness that how you treat one, you treat all the municipalities. So are they going to take over all the parking in Greenwood or Columbia or Greenville? All the parking? They say we only want to do the beach communities, but like I say, there's an issue of fairness in there. If you're going to do one municipality, you need to do all municipalities.
Now, is this new Department of Transportation plan actually part of the original 2015 plan?
There is no new plan that I know of.
Okay. Let me ask you this: Will the residents only parking going to have to be scaled way back along with changes to the existing parking, along with the removal of barriers in the existing parking areas?
I don't know.
Okay. Can the whole Isle of Palms be actually paid parking?
Well, I don't think they want that.
Okay. With every piece of public land, including the pieces that are currently blocked by personal property and landscaping, shouldn't it be just used for public parking?
Say that again now?
Yeah, why every piece of public land, including the pieces that are currently blocked by personal property and landscaping, shouldn't be used for public parking?
Well, every bit of public, when you say public land, are you talking about state rights of way?
Yes, sir, in that regard as well.
Well, here again, you have some owned by the Isle of Palms, you have some owned by the state. So I'm gonna have to say no. Like I said, you can't bulldoze all the Isle of Palms and turn it into a parking lot to accommodate visitors. And the State Department of Transportation doesn't have enough money to buy the Isle of Palms, and they don't have enough money to maintain roads as it is now. So how are they going to maintain beach parking and keeping it clean and providing police for it?
And eliminating residential only parking, should that be non-negotiable?
Well, most residents park in their driveways or in front of their houses, so I don't see where that would impact things. That should be, everyone who lives in Mount Pleasant, their parking rules, and even rentals, short-term rentals, have parking in front of the house. It's you just, like I say, you can't pave over the whole community and turn it into parking.
And let me go back to last year. Was keeping non-residents from entering the Isle of Palms with pulleys and barricades wrong, in your opinion?
Well, the state said it was wrong.
Okay.
And so, in my opinion, really doesn't count. State roads were blocked, and that should not have happened. But again, everyone was trying to do what they thought the governor was indicating was appropriate to do, and even Secretary Hall did nothing about it. So apparently she agreed with it.
Was that really an attempt, or all of this really, in your mind, is this an attempt to really privatize an island?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Is the lack of manpower really a safety concern here?
You mean safety personnel and police on the island?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I think they recognize that fact because the Isle of Palms hire additional police to help in the summertime, as does Sullivan's Island. When you swell a municipality with visitors, things happen. Downtown Charleston, on King Street, down on the upper end of King Street, on a Friday night when the number of people on that street swell, just here recently there have been shootings, there have been muggings, people being robbed. Yeah. When you have so many people crowded into one place, those things happen, and you have to be prepared for it. When you have a lot of people, and with a wave of a hand, you say, everybody go to the beach, and everyone can go to the beach. And you have people from the mountains, you have people from different states, and they all come to the beach. No one has to pass a swimming test before they go to the beach. So when those people go out in the water and they get past their ability to swim and survive in water, the town or the city of Isle of Palms has to have emergency personnel, boats, ski-doos, jet skis, that type of thing, to go out and find these folks and rescue them. And unfortunately, just last year there was a death because they couldn't find a swimmer. Like I said, the Isle of Palms doesn't require a swimming test or paid entry onto the beach. The county does. You have to, when you go to the county park, you have to pay to park. And for that payment, you get a place to park. There are facilities there, shower facilities and bathrooms bathrooms at the state or at the county park, and lifeguards. And that's what you pay for. And, you know, that's how the county chooses to finance having that facility. And the Isle of Palms doesn't charge you to walk onto the beach.
Yes, sir. Well, State Representative Joe Bustos, thank you again for your time, and welcome back to Quintin's Post-Ups, and hope to have you again on soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Quinn.
Bye-bye.